Okay, I think we're gonna get started here for a second. Um, for anyone dropping in that's new, this is Bug Free Productions. I am the bug most usually located on the rug, or under the rug. We have coding tutorials and mostly just sketching videos with comics and other things on them, and we're gonna go ahead and today be looking at something a little bit different. So today we have, um, as planned, we'll have the extra demo on JSON in Unity. I'm going to use a custom path, and I'm actually going to be referencing a lot of stuff that I've already done. So this is going to go a little bit different than where I code everything by hand normally, but I'll be inserting namespaces and going across the whole thing as I go, kind of breaking it down. What can I do here? Push this to this one. Okay, so you'll notice Spellbound is the one we're working in today, if you can see that. Still working on getting my settings correct so that I can so that people can read this screen, but also I'm not seeing a very small view on a 1080 tablet. If anyone has suggestions for that, feel free to drop them in chat or YouTube comments after the fact. So you can view live demos at Twitch TV, Jib at BFP, and then YouTube at the Bug Free Productions uh, account there for past recordings. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave it in the comments of the YouTube videos, would be the best way for me to see it, or in chat live. So we're gonna look at some couple different things. I've already started looking through this a little bit, and I'm looking at it, and what am I seeing? So first of all, there's a couple classes that we'll be pulling over into the um, arcade racer, which I also have open. So I won't be straight just working in the old thing I've already worked. I'll be pulling that over into a new class and kind of abstracting it a little bit, if possible, or at the very least reclaiming it to some different objects. And then we'll move on from that to expanding our factory to be a new type of factory, being like a saving factory. Reason for that being that it will be easier to save using some abstract factory concepts than it will be to save using some of the static, like singletons that I've seen a lot of people use, or just singletons in general that people use, scriptable objects, that sort of thing. So we'll probably have something, I'm not saying definite, but we'll have something probably resembling one static abstract factory controller and then one scriptable object that has all the references for prefab, different prefabs of things to instantiate. That will work that way, and saving out all that information when it, yeah, saving out all that information in a way that we can read it back and determine when or where and how to spawn objects based on the save settings. So we'll be looking at that, at least just saving and reading back information. So what do I want to do? I want to go and get, to start, let's go take a look at some stuff that I've already worked on. Let's go and look at this buddy, and actually I opened this already. So I want Spellbound. Yep. So Spellbound is the thing that I'm working on right now. And, or not working on right now, it was a thing I was doing when I was studying for the Udemy or exam. And there's a couple things in here that are really important in using JSON. Um, there is a system now that just uses JSON to save out, which works really nice. There's a couple things. So custom gateway. So this is the gateway of just getting, yeah, it's reading the JSON file. Custom gateway JSON reads the file. Stream reader using a stream reader. Using application.persistent data path, which was brought to my attention by one of my um, one of my friends that worked on Battletops with me, and then we have a path. So the a path is being passed in, and a path isn't referring to the actual path. That would be application persistent data path. What it actually refers to is a path is the rest of the path being the file name and type, so that that works correctly. And then string JSON text equals stream reader read to end. So we just read this all the way to the end, gets us our text, and then we stream reader dot close. So we close our stream reader so that we don't leave all that crap in memory, and we return JSON text. So this just reads the file out. It doesn't actually parse anything. Um, that's meant for something else, which would be the monster stat reader in this case. So our reader has a path, which is the object path that we're going to look at. So monsters JSON in persistent file path. We could change that to be like different addresses, but we'll keep with this one because we don't want to make it too complex for testing. And then we have private static monster reader JSON instance, meaning instance, if you remember when I covered not coroutines, singleton patterns. This is a singleton pattern to make sure our reader is never multiple, which would make a problem. In our new case, we probably will make this the reader, or in some way, a scriptable object, because this guy's going to need more information than just text coming in. Public monster stat find monster stat. So monster stat list JSON utility. It reads in this, and then for each monster that it reads in, so monster stat list being an object that's created of monster stats, and that is read by the JSON utility from JSON monster gateway. So it's just accessing all of these static parts of information and passing in its own path, which is the file name and type. And then for each thing that gets returned from that creation here, we check for the base name and we return stat. So monster stat reader JSON, this is just making it private. This is just for the singleton setup, not for the functionality of JSON. As you see here, this is this JSON thing I set up. And here's monster stat. So this would be the thing that's actually created by, used to create and read JSON objects. So system serializable just makes this serializable, basically, this class serializable. Whereas mono behavior is not a serializable class, this is, which is why it can't hold any real like game object information for the most part, because this does all have to equate to be just text, right? So we can't really do much with that on that end. But we can save all the settings and everything for it, which means we could go back and create a, so if we have a monster prefab that has a stat that has a name anyways, and we go to the name and we're like, okay, how do we get what's associated with this name, what stats are? And we just pull its stats. So we can get that sort of information saved out and pulled in dynamically in some cases. Monster stat list, this is also serializable so that we can construct this object using JSON information. And it just has a public monster stat, monster stats array, meaning this monster stat list will have, I think the monster stats is actually what we're changing. Um, and then it's being public, somebody else can create a monster stat list that has those and assign that in that fashion. So let's go ahead and go to do some uh, adaption in our game. Okay, so what are we going to need first? Well, mostly I think we're going to use this verbatim. Um, reason being that none of this is going to change. We still need to know where we're going to read from it, where we're going to write from it. And if we look at write file, we look stream writer. So it's just like stream reader, same path, and then we write an object string. So I think the way I put this in, um, did I not? That's interesting. Maybe that part didn't get pushed. The part where I hooked up the write. Yeah, I think I hard tested this and I never actually referenced it anywhere. Or I didn't push this to the rest of the repo. Anyways, not super important right now. We'll deal with that when we get to it. This type of thing, so let's just whole cloth control A, control C, and it's custom gateway JSON. So let's switch to our um, not our code actually. We need to go to our Unity. So I need to go to here. Let's go to scripts. Let's go create C# script. Crap. I'm just gonna short memory delete this because I didn't name it correctly and now that's a problem. I wanted a folder. I wanted a folder. Come on. Finish functioning so we can go back to our lives. Create a folder. So we create a folder. This is going to be for JSON. And I'm probably going to label it reading actually. So reading JSON. This should be all caps. Reading JSON. And then I'm gonna have to go back to my Spellbound. What was the name of it? Custom Gateway JSON. Um, STOM. Should be no spaces because can't do spaces. So this guy should be the same. So this is going to be exactly the same. This is going to be slash nope. Okay. 2024. Hands are just not cooperating in the slightest to move to the keys. Instance. So this is fine. This works perfectly fine. A path. So let's look at that. And also, I want to put this in the namespace. So I'm going to save this for later. So I want namespace of my bug-free productions dot tools. Tools. So we have tools, and then we have delete and move this towards the end. Okay, so then we go here, end, and Control S. Just so this is accessible to us later, or packageable by us later, or for me later, rather. You can use your own namespaces if you prefer, or if you would like to put yours in namespaces. But if you leave all of these outside of namespace in a Unity project, it should work perfectly fine. Let's go ahead and check out. Can we do a something here? I'm gonna go bike race. No, I'm gonna go spellbound. So in spellbound, we have the gate reader, and then we have a monster stat reader, JSON. So what are the basics of this we went over was bug-free protected path, and the monster stat reader instance. So for this part, I think we'll copy and paste all of this and then edit it down a little bit because this is where it's going to start changing a little bit. So place in this setup, I'm looking to do placeable objects. So placeable objects will be done by saving rotation and everything, but also having a string of name. So it works a little bit differently than this does. Whereas this is meant to be like a stat sheet where it's one creature has every attribute. The other one's going to have multiples that have the same name and have different attribute or have the same attributes but um, different values. So when we keep it in mind that way, it becomes a little bit different as we want to make sure we can read those in. And we might create, I think we could use name actually. We could use name to do some of that stuff if we don't feel like doing the other one. I think we'll actually do, but we'll see how that goes. Protected mon stat path. So let's do Control A, Control C, and we're gonna go back to our other bike race. And why the other bike race? So now we actually have to go to Unity to create that script. Well, we don't have to, but it's easier. Create scriptable object, C# script. So we're going to create C# script, and what are we going to need this for? This is going to be our stat reader. This would be our placement reader, placeable object reader, something like that. Placeable object reader sounds good. CAPLACABLE PLE, and this is going to be spelled wrong. PJECT. Reader, READER, placeable object reader, and then with that, we're going to go ahead and let that be what it is. Let the domain complete. Double click, open up, and then Control A, Control V, and we're going to change a quick couple things. Monster stat reader being one of them. This guy Control RR. PLACABLE, placeable. OBJECCT. Placeable object reader, which is going to be what this is. PLACE. I don't know. If there's errors, I might have to just go back and copy paste what's supposed to be in here. ABLE object reader. Cool. So if we do a reader, so monster stat is no longer an object in here, which we'll address, but placeable object will be. And actually, placeable object reader, Control RR. Can we do placeable objects? Not placeable object. Object placement reader. Object placement reader. And then it renames. Okay, yep. Because what we'll actually have is an object placement, I think. Object placement, and I actually want that to be one word. And why is that? So, object placement is going to replace monster stat. Where's monster stat? That's in our other thing. So in our monster stat, let's find that object. So these all coordinate directly to monster JSON objects, right? So that's how that works. I'm not going to use, yeah, I remember now, because I did test it and it wrote weirdly. Okay, monster stat. So all of those correspond, right? Basically it's a system serializable. So we'll just come back to that and make a system serializable object from scratch and keep that in mind as we keep going. Let's go ahead and move to back to the other one. There's a couple things I still want to change. I want to get my comments at the top of who made it and who's using it. And we go /u/, and we're gonna go with some. What do we want? We want a 11/6/2024, and we save that up. And then I want namespace of, and our namespace is going to be bug reproductions dot tools as well. Kind Because it can't hurt to have placeable objects and then pull an object placement out of there. I mean, that's going to be pretty usable um, everywhere in different games, right? So you can put it in tool, and I can put it in my tools. And then we're going to go down and we're going to flip a quirls on the end. And then we're going to keep going object placement monster stat. So I'm going to leave these while I go. Control C might get monster stat, Control D, and then object placement list maybe. And then do the same here, just so I know what it should be. And then we're going to go to Unity and create more classes for funds. Bike race. There's still some errors, but that's just because we haven't finished our work yet. So we go create, and we go C# script, and we go what is this going to be? This is an object placement, so BJECT shift BLACEMENT, and people are probably irritated at hearing me spell to myself, and they're probably even more irritated that it's wrong. So object placement, and let's create a script that's also the list part. So OBJECTPLACEMENT IST object placement list. Open that one and open that one. Okay, I need to go back and open this one as well, just so I have it open. These are not going to be mono behaviors. For the first initial test. And da da da, and then 11/6/2024. Okay, Control S, and we're gonna get a namespace of bug-free productions, and bug-free productions dot tools, and encompassing the whole class. And since it's not a mono behavior, it won't have this. And because we're going to need to serialize some JSON, I think it's in here that it needs to be. Whoop, probably not. It needs to be in here. SYST system dot serializable. And I'll also need that on the other one. So let's do the same thing for here. Uh, uh, okay. And we're gonna give it a namespace. Bug-free productions dot tools. Give it a thing here. So an object placement, this is one that's going to have vars. has bars that match PCH, has bars that match JSON object fields. Bars. And it's not going to have any methods, just these bars. I think for X, just for type safety, I'm not super experienced with moving around like if it's public or private or that sort of thing. I just kind of got something that worked and then figured if I actually use it, I'll worry about safety. Just kind of where we're at with it. Object placement, but essentially it's going to have a public. This is a public class. Can I use a vector3 in here? Somebody is shooting outside and can't hit a dang thing on the target board. What do we have? Virtual 0. So public vector3, vector3, B3. So we can use the vector3. I don't know how well I trust that. Let's look at my other code, spellbound. I didn't put any in here, and I used all strings and integers. I don't think putting in a vector3 would be the best idea, based on my experience with it, which is not very much. So what I would actually do is do public. When we do int, can probably do float, right? Let me see. Let me just Google quick. Types that can USED JSON. Object array number string boolean. All values except objects and arrays. I can use a string, an array, a boolean, a number. What qualifies as a number, dudes? Come on. Age 30, that's an integer. Numbers in JSON must be an integer or a floating point. So we can use floats. Yeah, so let's do floats then, definitely. Def floats. Float. Reason float. Vector3s are made of floats. So I'm gonna go T P X equal, let's say 0. So from these three, you can guess that I'm going to do X, Y, Z and save them separately, where I might be able to save a vector3 because it's a type and it's a struct. I don't trust it too much. So I'm gonna also label this, and actually we could use a region to do this too, which would be hash region. Info, and I'm gonna go ahead and tell myself what space it's in. And since the idea is we read it, save it out, and just load it back in exactly, it's perfectly fine to do world space, where I've said that sometimes you want to do local space, like when I was doing some IK and some angle measurement, some stuff like that, rotation, is better to do in local space sometimes. World space is perfectly fine for all of these values, and I just need reminders that they are in fact in world space. And then region, and this is going to be rotation. So form, well, actually, we'll just put it in, yeah, we'll just put it in here. There's no reason to, but in here we'll also do position, hence the TP, transform position X. And here we'll do the TATION, rotation, which will also have public float, and it'll be TR equal 0. Dupe dupe. Okay, so the idea behind this is I'm saving my rotation in world space as a vector, as in 3 separate things. So this is actually referring to a vector 3. And if I've covered, yeah, if I've talked about, rotation much, setting angles. If I've talked about setting angles much, I think I might have just used rotate so far, but if I've talked about angles, you'll see some of that come back up in terms of setting a quaternions rotation and getting that from an object based on their transform rotation. But this is all good. Is there anything that we really want in here that we need, maximum need? Oh, this is gonna not be an object placement. Oh, that's not what I wanted. I meant to hit backspace, not delete. System serializable object placement. So an object placement, which is just these stats, for right now at least, pretty good. Object placement list. So this is going to be what? Public object placement. And I'm going to pop back to my other code and just see what that looks like. It's an array. But we have, I don't know. Maybe that was a discrepancy I had from the tutorial, but I'm not in the habit of changing that. So I'd probably actually rename this something like ARR. So monster stat ARR, meaning monster stat array, because it's an array, not a list. Seems kind of dumb to me, but we're gonna stick with naming convention to finish, and we'll worry about renaming crap. Um, placement, this is array. Object placements. And what are we gonna need? We're gonna need to go back actually. So this all works out. One thing that's going to be also needed is we're going to need a ref public, and it's going to have to be a, what kind of reference? It's going to be a string, string. Why string? Because no designer, or not no designer, but few people designing the applications are going to be able to use something other than a string because it's easier to use names for objects. Even if that name turns into a serial number, but strings are immutable. They're also easy to enter in inspector, and they'll work perfectly fine for this. Just gonna check time real quick. We're doing pretty good. So public string ID, and this string is going to equal to string.empty. Is that a thing? What did I put in my other one? Not available, which is probably what I'll do. So because it'll print out better. It'll just print out better. So all that's not available. Which is pretty good. So now we should be able to fill all these variables and print all of them. So let's say, so if we load in an array, right? We can load in an array of all of them, which is perfectly fine, reading all of them, writing all of them, but yeah, that's probably functionality we'll build after. So this type of setup, so we're gonna close some ammunition bullets and stuff here. Players manager, it's fine. Camera weapon, camera viewport manager, factory item, poolable. I just really needed to get rid of some of the stuff on screen. Okay. So we have that. We have racer camera state. Don't need that. Object placement. So the idea is an object placement gets pulled into this array. And that's all of the object placements, right? So then pulling this, we should be able to load and push it to another one. The other thing is, and we'll probably have to use link here, is eventually when we add an object, adding an object to an array sucks. Yeah, absolutely sucks. So we should put a list, but we can't use a list in this context because we're generating the array, and having a list here, lists aren't serializable, so that causes issues there. I intentionally broke it to find out. So we can't do that. So Control C, and I'm just going to replace that, Control B. I didn't do that right. Delete. Object placement list does not exist. Object placement list does not contain a definition for object placements. Oh, I put lowercase. So this must be lowercase. Yep. And instead of base name, it's ID. And we're just leaving it kind of generic ID because future users, we don't know what exactly we're using as an ID yet. Some object ID was suggested to me. If they meant assigning an ID to it, yep, which is basically what we're doing here, string ID assigned. If it was meant to do something else, that would not, using a Unity object ID is not great for that, from what I read, because it is, and I only read this like a day or two ago, is not good. Didn't look to me to be good for that because it always changes every time it runs, or with the build, sometimes. So using some of that stuff isn't necessarily going to work great, which is why we're going to include the scriptable objects. Object placement reader. So all of this is looking really good. Object placement list. Find monsters looks good. Find monster stats. Okay, so this is going to be Control C. So I'm going to go ahead and rename some of this stuff. And actually Control RR because that's almost guaranteed to be somewhere else. So we rename that, has all this, so this should work fine. Should change this because monsters.json. It's not gonna be monsters. And maybe past tense is good for this. Placed objects, because it should read what objects have been placed in that file. So that's kind of what we're hoping to be there. So this reads it. Yeah, I don't know that I pushed a right. But custom gateway, that should be the right one. Stream writer. Data path, a path, stream writer dot right. an object string. Weird. That has to be wrong, that it didn't get pushed or something. Because I know I wrote and tested that, so it must be on the other machine. Which is unfortunate. But I think I remember enough to get by. Um, so this should all work. So we have the custom gateway, we have the object placement reader, which is our reader. We have our placement, and we have our object placement, our placement list, and our object placement object, all of which are serialized and able to be used by the um, by the system to be written to JSON. So object placement, find objects, placement reader. So is that correct? Just making sure all that's correct. Yep, monster stat reader. What could this do then? Monster stat reader. So this, the idea of this is that it sits on an object by itself, or that an object references this, creates one. No. Static. It's an object that can only create one. Yep, this is singleton, so a different object holds this. Let's go explore the Unity project a little bit. Should be able to hit play and maybe I'll see some stuff in console that makes more sense. So it finds ship tert, so play. Let's examine game object, I think is monster script. Let's edit the script. So monster script is a mono behavior that has monster stat. So it has a monster stat associated with it. That's protected, and then skill has skills in there that can be added. Monster name. I think this was in a later to come installment. Probably. Yeah, because that's meant to be like the Pokemon attack types. The monster name, and then monster stat equals the reader, and debug this thing. Monster name, public string. So I think if we look at the Unity, yes, I've typed ship turt in there, so it looks for that turtle and pulls the stat block. Which is how I was doing the testing. So let's set something up like that-ish kind of thing. Let's do bike race, placeable object. So we have an object placement, an object placement list, an object placement reader. So the next idea would be placeable object. Next objective would be placeable object, correct? So create scriptable objects. Nope, C# script. Placeable object, PLACABLE object. This is fine to be amount of behavior. We're also going to put this in tools for funsies. So then we go, and based on where this runs into, I'll probably still stop this one at about 2 hours, sort of thing. Just keep things consistent. BU, I freaking can't today. ST, can't even spell my own name, man. 6/2025. Wait. Namespace, bug-free productions, dot, tools. Let me just go down here. And we're gonna remove this crap, because why? No, actually, might need a start. I might do a start, just to give us that sort of testability like the other one had. So at the very least, I hope to create a file and pull a read from it today. That would be the minimum I'd want to get done today, so that would be a read. And then later, maybe next week, I'll do the write, which won't be too difficult considering I already have part of the code up there for it. But what it would be is, so monster has the name, so this one probably have like placeable object. It would need an ID. So public. And actually, we're back in home territory, not in JSON land. So I'm gonna go protected. Protected string ID, because this is comfortable stuff at this point. NA, not applicable. Just gives us better feedback than nothing, and also this is how you would get it if there was no data in field at a database for some of them. Protected string ID, so placeable object, it's going to have a vector3, which is also protected. I'm going to say targ. Let's say vector3 is 0, just so it has a real struct referenced. Plus, if it shows up at 0, 0, we probably didn't place it there, so people might notice. Vector3, TARGROT. Target rot. Now, why is it target rot, right? It's gotta be something. BN. Well, so that's where our, before we actually apply them, I'd like to make the vectors exist, and be something concrete and tangible as much as we can in programming. So we have these two vectors, which are just going to be able to hold that information that comes out. So I'll actually do something like create, create, or yeah, maybe something like protected virtual void interp interp p interpose and protected virtual void interp, nope, interp brought, which is cool. And then we're probably going to need one protected, what was it? Object placement. Object placement, placement. So it's going to have a placement. To place where to place objects. This is going to be what would it be? So protected string ID NA. Oh, I'm just trying to notate what's going on. Standing for CULAR prefab. So multiple of them can have that same ID because Unity already handles having unique object IDs. So we're not worried about it. And anything after placement or movement is probably going to happen here, not so much on the object placement class. Which this particular object placement would probably also be updated that way. So we might even get away with not, difficult to say. Because if it, so I want an ID basically, and I'm going to make this serialized because I do want to edit this in the inspector. Serialize field. And why do I want to do this serialized? Well, unlike this, I won't be creating this in the inspector. Protected virtual string ID. So I still want this ID to be a thing that I can assign, being that a placeable object would still be something I can put into my scriptable later. So I want it to be a game object that I can reference, right? And have its own ID that I set in there, being it'll be a prefab. So on the prefab, there will be a placeable object, and then that placeable object component will have an ID that the other parts of the scripts I build can use. So the so it's a for later thought. Target pose, target rot. We have vector threes. So these are REPRES represent represents, yeah, transform, position, SF, transform, position, and represent, transform, position, and rotation. CTOR 3S. So that's cool. Actually, I might even just do this reads better. Looking at interpret, this is no longer acceptable in my thinking. I was thinking just reading in, but we're gonna have to interpret reading and out. Read. So what I should actually have here is read pose, read rot, and then I should have and then let's actually make a region. Region read from object placement, and I'm going to shorthand shorthand that a little bit. And why regions? Regions just help me organize stuff. Works really nice. Because we can just hyphenate these guys down and pull them back out when we want to work on them. Also, if we auto follow, like control click on something like this, it'll reopen this if it's closed. So they just help a lot when you're using Visual Studio. Region, this will be WRITE to OPJO PLACEMENT. And why do we read and write from it? Because we have to convert it from the initial float values that we defined. Because these vector threes can't be stored directly into a JSON object. Unity utility might have something that works for that. I'd rather not do automatic stuff if I don't need to, slash have time to do it myself. Which happens less and less these days, but we'll try and do it. So reading a pose would be object placement, which is placement, um, dot, nope, dot, TPX. And I'm just going to open 3, Y, back shift Z. So actually it's really easy as targ pose is equal to, it's not targ pose, it's targ pose.x. So the x value is equal to the placement x we saved. Gonna Control C, and I think it's Alt Shift Control V. Then I'm just gonna click on the screen because I don't remember how to break that. And then this can be Y, and this can be Z. And all of these just need line caps, little semicolons, and those are all set. So that's read pose. Great. One thing that might be good to have in here is if placement not equal null, then do the thing I just said. Just a precaution, but always nice. Then we could do else. Debug dot log no placement found. No placement found. And then we're just gonna Control C, Control V, and it'll do Control C. Control V, target pose. So now we have read pose, read rot. We don't want target pose. We want, let's do Alt Shift again. 1, 2. Shift R O T. Placement. And this would be S. What is it? T R. Yep. Cool. So we got that. No placement found. Fair enough. So there's that. So these should read and write to the target Z's. And then as far as assignment, what would we do for assignment? Assignment would be doing something such as actually changing this game object position and rotation. Well, the thing is, that's a little easier said than done. So we remember these are all in world space. It's fine. Just need to remember that when we're working with it. So let's go ahead, create a new region. Region assign ROT and what is it? Rotation and ELS. And region. This also needs an end region. Before we write to it, we're going to assign it. Assign what our thing is, but I do want it in this order so that we have read, write, and assign, because read and write are kind of coupled a little bit, and then they're not coupled, they're not necessarily dependent, but they'll be really similar. So if I'm working in one, I might be working in the other as well. So keep those guys close together. Write to object placement and assign. So pro protected virtual void assi assign brought and assign pose. Virtual void pose. This one's really easy. Basically target pose equals vector 3.0. Yeah. So transform that position equal target pose. Whoops. That's all that is. This one's a little trickier. So transform dot rotation set Euler angles. That was deprecated. Maybe this was easier than I remember it being. Huh. I seem to remember having to pull Euler angles, and then I think that was for some other checking I did. Nope. A quaternion that stores the rotation world transform space cannot modify the return value of that. Yep, so it's not actually a set, that's what it is. Said it's a set is not a set. Equals static quaternion class dot Euler angles Euler or Euler I mean returns rotation that rotates z degrees around z returns deprecated. What was it? Oh, equals, I think, new quaternion dot. What is it? I probably should just look it up in my other Unity projects rather than trying to figure out from scratch again where it was, because you have to look up those references on the web page. Not, I'll have to Google it. I don't remember Just don't remember. Oh, it's too much to remember all the time. New rotation. From three. Vector 3 transform dot rotation. Yield, wait for seconds, audio play one shot. This isn't even what I asked. That's fine. New rot equals vector 3, transform dot rotation equals quaternion dot Euler new rotation. Quaternion dot Euler, and the new rotation is argrot. Oh, because I return it and then assign it. That makes, yeah. Boy, my legibility, my illiteracy there? I don't know. Any rate, bad at reading. Is all that was. Position, so this is all fine. That looks correct. So start, we basically want to copy that monster one we were looking at in Spellbound. So I'm actually just going to grab it, Control C. What do I want? I want to paste that. So this becomes placement. This becomes this one. Object placement reader JSON. The JSON isn't on this one. Placement reader instance find object placements. And we pass in a Control C monster stat base name. Find object placements ID monster stat dot base name. So that would be an ID. Okay. So the idea of this is we put a thing in here that will be in the placement. That placement will pull back to here. It'll translate the vector 3 zeros into rotation vectors. Or it'll read the three separate floats into vector 3s using read pose and read rot. Then we call assign, so we will assign them, assign rot, assign pose. And what it does eventually will pull into this object and set the object according to the placement for the ID. The idea of this later is to have probably another object at some point. So when the scene loads, it'll load all the objects that were placed in that scene, creating them based on an ID. So this ID you can think of as a type of object or a name of an object rather than an actual instance of an object working that way. So we have targ pose working that way. So that ID looks for the placement information, which this isn't what our end all result is desired to look like, not for this one, because remember we have to change it to be like for every object. In there and then creating an object, adding, so we create. But this should work for all of that placement ID. So what we should be able to do, and I'm going to Google while I'm talking through this, there is a, and I need to make sure I spell this right, placement object reader. I think I need to follow that. Here we go. Persistent data path. So persistent path unity. So what is persistent data path? Well, that's basically a persistent path defined by Unity for your device that it can read from. And the thing about this persistent data path is that we can use it across, I've tested it on Windows PCs. I want to try and test it on mobile, see how it behaves. Because if you've done Android, you'll know that it refers to things differently than some of the other operating systems. But this should work for both PC and Mac, and just keeping a persistent place to save data. Where you can store data, and I'm looking for the default location. Default location. And now I'm going to go, so you can just Google the persistent path, and then it'll give you the default one, which is where it'll go unless you tell it to do something special, or if you have that one, if you were playing around with paths to make folders and other things like this, then you would have it a little bit different and it would be extended. But for mine, I just need to go to, I'm going to put the screen on hold. So we have one moment, please, and I'm going to go and look, see if I can look that up for you guys. So here we go, and I'll be right back. Okay, and we're just one more second here as I'm making the file name. So in your local file path, you'll also have to create the object. So you can just right click and create a new text document. Make sure it's dot JSON, and then this is going to be object placements. Object placements. Um, oh, okay. Okay, and I think we'll pull that back now. So, there's a couple things I pulled open. You'll notice that I pulled open my JSON and the monsters. So, we'll look at that as we're going, but we'll also have to look at um, doing some. Where is this little bugger? Um, we'll also have to look at some other things as well, because we haven't set up our JSON object yet. So it's basically gonna look for one and find nothing. Which it doesn't just create one because it doesn't find it. Just doesn't find it. So if we pop back to art, what's this? Today's one? Yeah. So you can see up here. This is the one that I did right. So the testing did happen, and I just kind of removed it for some reason. Meh. Um, but yeah. So the thing to remember about JSON is it just writes directly in a line. It does not reread anything. I mean, not reread. It doesn't do the spacing for anything. So if I actually so I have monsters, and the other one is object placements. We have monster stats. That's the object type that's in here, right? Monsters. Object placements is going to be what that is. So let's go ahead and go back, and you'll notice this is an array, correct? So this object defined as has an array, base name, ship turtle. So this is pretty much an array of strings and values of all the variables that we defined inside one monster class. So that being said, we would probably go back to this one and do something like, so we have JSON, right? So placeable object, it wouldn't be that one, it'd be placeable list, but it wouldn't be placeable list. It'd actually be this one here, which is a little confusing. Placeable objects. And what was it? It's in a string wrapper. But I'm actually gonna go ahead and do, whoa, okay. Spellbound. So I want these two together, right? I'll probably remember to put holding or something up when I do that again. I don't know if there's any sensitive information on that, but it didn't look nice. Monster stats. So, oh, that should actually be in a squiggle bracket. And Visual Studio does kind of help a little bit, slightly-ish. In helping fill in some of the syntax for you. So, yeah, I think this, yeah, so basically this means array. This is object name that we're writing to serialized. This is array, and this is all of the one item. So we need to go to placeable object and remember that spot where it's not objects, it's object placement. We have these guys. So basically we use that. So if we're entering them by hand, here they are. And this is why I like to read first and write second. Oh crap, I hope that stream worked well. Well, it didn't. Oh well. I was thinking that OBS had updated, but I don't think I hit done, so well, we tried. It'll be fixed when it's later. So basically we gotta go that, so I'm just gonna, you know what, go ahead and, since they're all public and all that stuff, I'm gonna look over here quickly. Base name, shipped her, and you notice that sort of thing is what's going on. So I'm gonna go in here. I'm just gonna do Alt Shift. And I'm gonna do a Control C, because all those are gonna be names, and if it's string, it'll have a string. If it's not, it'll have a value. So then let's go place object, object placements JSON. Okay, so then let's fix this a little bit. I want this curled. That's nice. I want this opened. And I want Control B. Yep, and it auto translated that kinda, or not auto translated. It kinda works out. No, no, it didn't. It didn't do that at all right. But okay, so hit Control Z and it removes the formatting that changed. Basically, semicolon turns comma. Um, equals is going to turn to full-on colons. Move the extra colons. And the N. Actually, let's leave that full divide just there. And then we'll go ahead and make some we're just seeing how that works. Delete, and this is kind of tedious a little bit, but eventually it saves time. Then we go this one, and then we go this one. And that's that one. Okay, so you can see the variables declared on the left and the values on the right. And all of them within an item and contained in the array that is object placements, which needs to map names with the pieces it's linked to. So like these guys here, yep, and object placements, yep. So all good. Oh, that's not right. Control Shift S, not Control Alt Shift S. That is no virtue here. That I'm aware of. So if this is all set up and good, right? What do we want to do? We want to Control S. Probably jump back into Unity. Put one of our placeable objects into the scene. We got a couple more things to make sure we run speed out. I'm going to debug the ID just for kicks. And let's go ahead and do that. So we go placeable object. So let's go back to before we go back to Unity. Placeable object needs to oh, it debugs its ID. Let's actually change that so that we know it's not getting the not available ID. Tester ID. And we can go back to the object placeable object. This should read it out. And that should be fine. I'm not sure what made this rewrite. Evo name not available. All right, yeah, so let's go ahead and do that, and then I think we'll call it, whether the test works or not, we'll go do the test, and then might call it after that just so I keep my voice. So if we're looking at this, let's go back to unit. I think I have it on start, right? Placeable object, the on start does the thing, so we're good. We're all good for this initial test, and then we'll work on getting the poses read and placed according to that in a minute. And then we'll change the writer later, but For now, we'll go Unity. Wheel. What is capsule? Does that have anything on it? Well, yeah, it's just the firing on it. Let's do, what is it? Placeable object thing? Placeable object. Yeah, just leave that not available. Let's do flip to console. Let's do a, I want to make sure that other one's not running. It's not running. Let's do a play run. File not found exception, could not find, and there's my pathing information. That's nice of them. Whatever. Let's go ahead and, yeah, I can't read that now. That's stupid. Let's go ahead and, I have a feeling I didn't rename something. Create custom gateway. All of that runs persistent application data, placed objects.json. So let me give you a hold sign. Where the heck? Hold please. What does that do then? So looking at that, we're gonna have to go to object placements, and our naming issue. Of course it is. I named the JSON file object placements, and I named the, or I'm looking for, come on, I'm looking for placed objects. Control S, and I'm gonna play this just to see what I get before I pull you guys back in. We'll see how this goes. Null reference object not set to an instance of an object. Assets reading JSON. Placement ID. Placement equals object placement reader instance find object placements ID. Huh. So why is that? Probably gotta be find placements. Returns a string, no, returns an object placement by pulling all those into an array. For each object placement stat in stat list object placements, if stat equal base name. Whoa, base name? The ID we pass in. Okay. And stat list. Okay, so those. Okay, so the thing I thought I was being smart about with the other ones isn't actually so smart. Because the what do I need here? Give me Control C. The IDs have to match. So that was just entirely stupidity on my part. Uh, need to keep those the same. What was that on then? That was on. Yeah, we can pull this back down again. Object placements, JSON. So this had to match this. So that was that. That's easy. The placeable object, this has to match this. So let's just Control V, Control S, and I'll run it again, and this should work correctly. Yes. So now this confirms that it is in fact working. After all that work, we now read, and we read, pull, and do that sort of thing. So what does this mean? That leaves the ground foundation for I can have placements and the objects that are supposed to be placed there at the position and rotation of as defined. And I'll work on that later to pull into other types of things where it's so based on the ID, I can go get a prefab from a abstract factory pattern. Being that I give the ID to the abstract factory, I go pick a factory out that produces that item, build it, child it, do all that stuff, and then continue with this placeable object class to continue and create a system where I can place objects that saves into its own placeable object system. And when we close or save the scene, instead of writing out like the other one did, where it just rewrites out all the creatures, or what have you with the stat, it would write out the settings for the different objects being their ID, so what object they are, and then their setup for what it is. So this is set up to read all that information in, started to set up what how we will assign things, and then we'll start writing out to other objects. So JSON is really simple. We didn't actually get to do any writing yet, but we will. JSON is really simple to use in Unity using that assets path, but it's very tricky as well. It's not very, there's, in getting it to work, there's a lot of naming that I got consistently wrong, which is also why I don't like referencing string nodes or referencing nodes through strings, like in Java or Godot, at certain points, uh, and that sort of thing. So if you like this kind of stuff and you're interested in seeing more, definitely for live demos, view the Twitch if you have time, and then drop in at jib at BFP. Or if your schedule doesn't line up, make sure to check out Bug Free Productions. YouTube listed there down below, and uh, we can answer any questions you throw in the comments or the chat. With that, I hope everybody has a bug-free night, and make sure to catch the art stream tomorrow, which might be art, might be, what is it? Pathfinder? Pathfinder prep-ish. Have a bug-free night.